We are so conditioned to think of legacy in these strict binary terms.
Like you're either the absolute champion of your era or you're just entirely forgotten.
Exactly.
So to challenge that binary idea, we're doing a deep dive today into a stack of translated Japanese race chronicles, breeding records, and fan tributes surrounding a racehorse named Daring Heart.
It's a fascinating story.
It really is. The mission of this deep dive is to synthesize all of these records, right? To understand a totally different kind of legacy. One that isn't built on being the undisputed number one, but rather on, well, just enduring long enough to leave a mark.
And to set the stage here, if we look at the raw breeding data from 2002, Daring Heart had absolute royalty in her veins.
Oh yeah, like top tier.
Right. Her sire was Sunday Silence, a horse famous for passing down this incredible agility and stamina, and her broodmare sire, meaning her maternal grandfather. Anyway, that was the legendary American horse Danzig. He was known for just pure explosive speed.
So on paper, that is a genetic cocktail that screams absolute greatness.
It does. But, I mean, looking at the stable measurements from that era, the physical reality completely clashes with that genetic expectation.
Yeah, she was tiny.
So small.
Huh.
She raced at around 420 kilograms.
And to put that in perspective for anyone unfamiliar with horse racing, an average thoroughbred usually races closer to like 480 or 500 kilograms.
Yeah, she was distinctly smaller than almost her entire generation.
Ah.
And because of that physical stature, her price tag for the Shadai Racehorse Club was just ordinary, like nothing spectacular at all.
Which creates this immediate narrative contrast. You know, you have this massive genetic expectation trapped in a very unassuming physical frame.
Right. And her owners named her Daring Heart, which actually translates to brave heart.
Which is going to become highly ironic and painfully accurate as we get into this, because from that unassuming stature, we launch right into her early career.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where her massive fighting spirit essentially collides head-on with a generation of absolute physical giants.
Yeah, so she debuted as a 2-year-old and won her second start. That shows some early promise.
A good start, yeah.
But the real turning point comes at the Hanshin Juvenile Fillies. It's a major race, and she finishes 5th.
But the placement itself isn't what matters there, is it?
No, not at all. It's who she met on the track. That race introduces her to the defining rival of her entire life, a horse named Linecraft.
Oh, Linecraft. This kicks off what we can really only call the agony of, almost. Because, you know, at 3 years old, Daring Heart is struggling to secure major wins.
Yeah, she's competing in open company races.
Which are essentially the standard everyday races to build a resume, right?
Exactly. But she just can't break through to the top tier, so her team targets the Fillies Review.
Right. This is a crucial trial race to qualify for the Oka Show, which is one of the biggest classic races for 3-year-old fillies in Japan.
And the Japanese racing press at the time was completely dominated by 3 major stars. You had Linecraft, Air Messiah, and Dia de la Novia.
And Daring Heart was just, what, invisible?
Basically, yeah. She was invisible to the public. She entered the Fillies Review as the 7th favorite. Literally nobody was expecting her to dictate the pace.
But then the gates open, and her strategy completely changes. She just bursts to the front.
He really does.
She outlasts Air Messiah. She outlasts Dia de la Novia. She is right there, pushing for the win, only to be caught in the final agonizing moments by Linecraft.
Yep.
She takes 2nd place. It's painful, but she does secure her qualification for the classics, which brings a massive amount of tension to the Oka Show. Despite that gritty performance in the trial, she enters the main event with 0 respect from the betting crowd.
None at all.
She starts as the 10th favorite, but once again, she runs the race of her life. She finds perfect position, perfect rhythm. In the home stretch, she just surges to the lead.
And right there with her is Linecraft. Again, the track cameras show them battling side by side down the final stretch.
It's so intense to watch.
It really is. Daring Heart is fighting desperately, pushing her 420-kilogram frame to its absolute physical limit against this much larger, more powerful rival. But Linecraft edges her out.
Ugh, again.
And then, just to compound the heartbreak, right at the wire, another horse named Shizario swoops in from behind and passes her too. So Daring Heart finishes 3rd.
So I have to ask, how did the fans perceive her? Was she just seen as a failure, like always the bridesmaid?
What's fascinating here is that the fan tributes from this era reveal something entirely different. They didn't view her as a loser at all.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, after she followed the Okasha Show with another brutal 2nd-place finish to Linecraft in the NHK Mile Cup, the public gave her an incredibly paradoxical nickname, They called her the strongest one-win horse.
Wow. The strongest one-win horse. I love that name, but man, it is deeply bittersweet.
It really is. But it highlights a profound aspect of human nature. We love a dominant champion, sure, but we deeply connect with a talented underdog who just cannot seem to catch a break.
That makes total sense.
Everyone in the stands knew she had elite talent. She had these 3 agonizingly close defeats to the exact same rival on the biggest stages, but technically, legally, she still only had that one minor career win on her record.
It's basically the curse of the silver medal. And eventually, the physical and psychological toll of that curse catches up to her, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Constantly pushing your body into the red zone, constantly peaking your adrenaline only to suffer a psychological defeat. It just breaks her momentum entirely. The racing logs show a massive slump.
It is a severe physiological decline. Rather than losing by a nose, she starts finishing in the back half of the pack.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats. 4th in the Queen Stakes, 12th in the Shuka Show, 15th in the Swan Stakes, 12th in the Hanshin Himba Stakes.
When a horse exhausts their adrenal system trying to catch an uncatchable target, the muscles simply stop responding the way they used to.
That's heartbreaking.
And even when the racing authority created a new major race, the Victoria Mile, and Daring Heart finally managed to finish ahead of Linecraft for the first time in her life, she still only placed 6th overall.
So the spark just seemed completely extinguished.
Yeah.
She broke herself trying to close that final inch. But the breeding and stable records show something pretty remarkable. Her trainers didn't give up.
No, they didn't. They rested her, adjusted her training, and little by little she recovers. She has a solid run in the Epsom Cup, building her confidence back. Then she returns to the Queen Stakes.
And finally, she wins.
Yes.
It is her second career victory, but more importantly, it is her first graded stakes title. She is officially a stakes winner.
The relief in the stable must have been palpable.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Just as she finally overcomes her hurdle, the universe delivers a devastating blow.
It has a very dark sense of humor. Just 6 days after Daring Heart secures that graded stakes victory, devastating news breaks. Her ultimate rival, Linecraft, dies suddenly.
Wow.
From acute heart failure at her home farm.
Let's pause on that. The rival that defined her existence, the mountain she spent her entire developmental window trying to climb, is just gone.
Just gone. And acute heart failure in elite equine athletes is rare, but it is catastrophic.
The emotional whiplash for the fans and the racing community must have been staggering.
It was. Linecraft was a superstar. And we see the impact of that loss in Daring Heart's very next race. She enters the Fuchu Himba Stakes carrying this incredibly heavy shadow.
Yeah.
And against all odds, she wins it. Back-to-back graded stakes victories.
Did the racing public connect those two events? I mean, winning right after Linecraft died.
Intimately. The fan accounts from that week show they viewed her Fuchu Himba Stakes victory as a tribute.
Oh, that gave me chills.
Right. It was seen as a farewell gift to the rival who had forced her to become stronger. Linecraft served as the ultimate evolutionary pressure for Daring Heart, pushing her to her absolute limits.
So with Linecraft gone, the fans felt Daring Heart was now running to honor that rivalry.
Exactly.
And with Linecraft gone, the entire narrative of Daring Heart's life shifts. It goes from this desperate high-speed attempt to beat her peers to a grinding battle to simply survive them.
Because the attrition rate of this specific generation of horses was brutal. Linecraft passed away. Shizario, the horse that snatched second from her at the Oka show, suffered an injury and was forced into early retirement.
So the giants are falling.
Yeah. Air Messiah, another major rival, also had to leave the sport because of physical breakdowns. The giants of her generation were disappearing one by one.
But Daring Heart stays. Her whole identity transforms into endurance. At 5 years old, she enters the Victoria Mile. She finishes third at massive odds.
Massive odds.
I'm looking at the payout records here. That race triggered a trifecta payout of over 2 million yen.
Which is wild.
To put that in human terms, a 2 million yen payout means if you bet a tiny fraction of a dollar on her and the other long shots, you walked away with thousands. It was an astronomical upset pulled off by a horse everyone else assumed was washed up.
She then goes on to defend her title in the Fuchu Himba Stakes, becoming a repeat winner. She kept fighting when the genetically superior horses just couldn't hold up.
But eventually, time catches up. The club that owned her had mandatory retirement rules for mares to ensure they could start their breeding careers safely, right?
That's standard.
And the Queen Elizabeth II Cup proved to be too long a distance for her stamina, and she basically had no suitable top-tier turf races left on the calendar.
Right.
So her team does something that looking at the records, seems entirely reckless. They switch this tiny aging turf horse to dirt racing.
It was an incredibly unorthodox decision. But from the management's perspective, they were out of options. She had a mandatory retirement date approaching, and they wanted to keep her active. It wasn't about expecting dominance. It was about finding an open starting gate.
And yet, defying all logic, she adapts.
She does. She relies entirely on her tactical intelligence and that fighting spirit. She places third in the Queen Show, second in the TCK Joe High, and then she lines up for her final race in Japan's premier dirt mile, the February Stakes.
And how does she do?
She doesn't win, but she makes a strong, gritty move in the stretch and finishes 7th against actual dirt specialists. A highly respectable final performance before she heads to retirement.
So what does this all mean? I am looking at her final career statistics here. 26 starts. Only 4 wins.
Daring Heart's legacy is about the capacity to endure. She carried the memory of her fallen rivals. She outlasted the superstars who burned incredibly bright but faded fast due to injury or tragedy. She served as the anchor for an entire generation.
She just kept showing up to work.
Exactly. And that habit of outlasting her obstacles, of refusing to exit the stage, manifests one last time in the most cinematic way possible through her genetics.
Oh, this is the part of the breeding records that is truly stunning. So she goes to Shaddai Farm to begin her life as a broodmare. She produces 8 foals.
Yep.
And keeping with the agonizing theme of her life, not a single one of them becomes a major star. Her very first daughter, Daring Bird, races but retires completely winless.
Which is a huge disappointment.
And because she is winless, Daring Bird is sold off to a much smaller, less prestigious farm in the Hidaka region.
So it seems like the bloodline is just going to quietly dilute and fade away into obscurity.
Total.
But Daring Bird is sitting at this small farm, and the breeders decide to pair her with a stallion named Epiphania.
Wait, let me stop you right there. Because when you trace the lineage back, Epiphania is the son of Shizario, the exact same Shizario that swooped in at the wire to steal second place from Daring Heart at the Oka show.
The genetic pathways here are just extraordinary. You have the dormant bloodline of Daring Heart, the mare who could never quite win the biggest races but possessed an unbreakable constitution, crossing directly with the bloodline of Shizario, the superstar rival whose career was cut short by physical fragility.
Wow.
The breeders essentially combine Daring Heart's ironclad endurance with Shizario's explosive brilliance.
And the result of that cinematic crossbreeding?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the result is a foal named Daring Tact.
Daring Tact?
Yes. In 2020, Daring Tact doesn't just win a race. She becomes the undefeated Triple Tiara winner.
The undefeated winner.
Exactly.
So Daring Tact achieved the ultimate dream, the undisputed summit of racing that her grandmother, Daring Heart, fought so hard for but never could reach.
Precisely.
Daring Heart was never the main character of her own generation. She wasn't the superstar. But because she stayed in the fight, because she refused to break entirely under the weight of constant defeat, her bloodline eventually reached the absolute summit.
It just took a couple of generations of genetic recombination to get there.
Which brings us to a fascinating, somewhat provocative question to consider, doesn't it?
It does. We often view devastating rivals as roadblocks. But look at the sheer evolutionary pressure Linecraft applied to Daring Heart. By forcing Daring Heart to run at her absolute physical limit race after race, Linecraft likely forged the deep epigenetic grit that eventually defined that bloodline.
It really makes you wonder. If Linecraft hadn't pushed Daring Heart so relentlessly to the point of breaking, would Daring Heart have developed the sheer resilience necessary to pass down to Daring Tact?
Probably not.
Sometimes our most devastating roadblocks, the people or circumstances that keep us perpetually in second place, are the exact evolutionary pressure we need.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more.